In June of 2021, I rented an SUV to take my bicycle to Cincinnati to start the Ohio to Erie Trail. The Ohio to Erie Trail is actually 22 local or regional trails that connect to form 326 miles, stretching from the Ohio River in Cincinnati up through Columbus to Akron to Cleveland at Lake Erie. I was also going to add about an additional 56 miles on the end to travel back to my home in Huron. I did get a little bit lost in Cincinnati after dropping off the SUV, but made it to the river and started my ride. Initially, the ride starts along some nice parks along the river. The forecast called for rain and thunderstorms through the entire week, but I was hoping it would change. And in fact, it did, at least until the last day. The temperatures, however, were in the high 80s to 90s and extremely hot through the entire week. I was going to complete the trail over 6 days. There were calls for cicadas this year, heavy in Cincinnati, but through the entire trail I didn't spot one. Traveling on the roads through Cincinnati was easy. Some of the shoulder space at the side of the road was more narrow than I would have liked. But it was a relief to get on the trail and to get into some shade. I packed as light as I could because while I've taken some bike tours in the past, I've usually shot for 40 to 50 miles a day. On this trip I was shooting for 60 to 70. There was a detour of the Little Miami Trail. I felt safe on the roads, though it started with a fairly steep climb. It was nice to get back to the trail, though. Much of the trail until one reaches the Cuyahoga Valley follows along old railed trails. In addition to retired rail bridges to cross, there are train depots and at some spots some old trains or train cars to view. I spent the first night in Xenia after biking about 71 miles. It was probably one of the most bike-friendly cities I've ever been in addition to several trails going through this city, the bike lanes are remarkable. I camped that first night at the Old Town Reserve Campground, run by the county parks. It's supposedly the birthplace of Tecumseh. It was a nice park. The second day, I left Xenia to head up to Columbus, about a 60-mile trip. The rain held off again. Throughout the week, the wind was heading from the southwest, which actually helped quite a bit. The trails from Cincinnati to Columbus are paved. This allows some quick cyclists to zoom by while you're traveling. The weather was again hot the second day, as it would be the rest of the week. As one approaches Columbus, the route becomes less separated and starts to travel along roads, although not entirely. There are actually some nice bridges as you come into Columbus, whether they're going over rivers or highways. I rode my Surly Midnight Special, a bike I built up from the frame. It does well for me. It's dependable and operates perfectly. Well, I like to camp along the way. In Columbus, the best location I found is the Red Roof Inn, which is right off the trail. It's not the best hotel, it's not the cleanest hotel, but it's convenient. It was nice to get a good rest, a good shower, and a meal at the restaurant in the same parking lot. On the third day, I headed out from Columbus to go to Howard, Ohio, where the Cokeson Valley campground is. The beginning part of the trail required some dodging of broken glass, and there was some garbage along the way. This day would be in the 90s. Once one gets to the Alum Creek Trail on the north side of Columbus, it really becomes beautiful. Trees, rivers, and winding paths. This day of riding included a very gradual uphill for the first half of the day and a very gradual downhill for the second half of the day. I enjoy the scenery of the country roads as much, if not more, than I do the trails, though the lack of protection from the sun was noticeable. Throughout the entire ride, except for maybe when I got close to home, the drivers were very careful, providing plenty of space. Though, running halfway out and dodging back under your tires as you went by. I was lucky enough to miss all of them. I would detour off the trail to get to the Cocosin Valley campground. It's one of my favorite stops along the way. It's a nice campground. Everybody is extremely friendly. They have water for sale, showers. There's a nice pizza delivery place. I took advantage of each, ordering a stromboli that I had for dinner and served as my breakfast the next day as well. The fourth day was expected to be the most difficult of the trip. It was going to be 70 miles. Much of it was going to be off the trail on roads and fairly steep hills along the way as well. Instead of the rain and thunderstorms that were predicted, it was 90 degrees and the sun was hot. In addition to being one of the more difficult days of the trail, it is probably my favorite section of the trail. As one gets closer to Millersburg, there are more Amish people, more horses and buggies. And the horses leave some deposits behind. I had planned to stay at the Bridge of Dreams, but apparently it fills up early with only one primitive campsite available. Along this part of the trail, the cyclists are given about a third and the horses and buggies the other 2/3 to use. No rules are strictly enforced, of course, but it's important to be careful to observe which third of the trail you have to use so you don't interfere with the horses and buggies. I reached some nice speeds thanks to gravity. The end of the day was planned to be in Canal, Fulton, which brought me to the Canal. Unfortunately, there was some mix-up with the reservation, which the campground was more than willing to resolve. But in the meantime, I made reservations back at Massillon to stay at a hotel that evening. It was nice to stay at a hotel and have the showers again. There were plenty of food stops nearby. It was a very nice hotel, the Hampton Inn. On the 5th day, it was going to be a shorter route, just 44 miles from Massillon to Peninsula. This day would be primarily along the trail, primarily gravel, and primarily shaded, which was nice since it was 98 degrees. I planned for it to be a shorter day because I knew the final day would be a long one. Video can't capture the heat. It also can't capture the odors along the way, from the freshly mowed grass, the salty roadkill, fresh water, stale water, my own stink, the smell of well water at the campgrounds. The bushes and the flowers and the trees. Akron is probably the nicest city to ride into. It makes full use of the canal with trails along the way. Despite this being a shorter day, I did try to keep on track with few stops, wanting to get to the campground on time to avoid storms that were predicted to come in the evening. I spent this night at the Heritage Farms shelters. They're available on Hip Camp. It's a Christmas tree farm that has tent sites and some wooden shelters to stay in. I'd reserved one of the shelters because the rain was predicted, and it did come that evening. The final day would take me from Peninsula to Cleveland at Edgewater Park in Lakewood, the ending of the Ohio to Erie Trail. I would go on, though, for about another 56 miles to head home in Huron. Despite rain being forecast for the entire day, I was able to make it at least through the first half of the trip on this day without any. The paths were wet, though, from the rain the night before. This, of course, brings out colors of the leaves. The trail system into Cleveland is fantastic. It becomes more urban, of course. More bridges, more tunnels. And still more geese. I enjoy looking down on the steel mills in the city, and the highways for that matter, from a bike path. I'd planned to stop at Edgewater Park for a nice break, but got caught at one of the bridges in the flats. After about a 20-minute wait there, I made it to Edgewater Park and rode through, but didn't stop. Skies remained blue when I reached Edgewater. then I headed on home, driving through Lakewood to start, on through Rocky River, Bay Village, Avon Lake, at which point the storms became more clear that they were going to hit. I tried to spot out different parks and shelters where I might wait for the rain to pass. As I rode into Lorain, it came. As I rode into Vermilion, not only did the bike lanes disappear, but did the shoulders of the road. For that matter, so did any concept of providing a bike safety space as the cars passed. The rain wasn't bad. It was nice to hit Huron, my hometown. Though I had offers to pick me up, to drive me the remaining way to escape the rain, I was determined to do it, and I did it. 397 miles over 6 days.